point is that after 5 quarters of continuous decline, the economy has recorded a modest growth in the second quarter of this fiscal, and that is being made out as a big reversal of the trend. Most important element of this improvement is, compared to the previous quarter, is the growth in manufacturing, which is at 7% compared to 1.2% in the previous quarter. Now, you know, as far as figures are concerned, one has to be very careful about what we compare with what. So generally, if we are comparing 6.3 with the last year's growth, then it is subdued. Even manufacturing growth of 7% is less than the manufacturing growth of 7.7% in the same quarter last year. But clearly, it is an improvement from previous quarter. 1.2 to 7% is a huge jump. But here I'd like to raise a point which I had been raising earlier also, is about the authenticity of the figures. We know that the formula for computation of GDP was changed, and after that the growth rate of the last year of UPA, which was supposed to be 4.5% in 13-14, jumped to 6.5%. So clearly a jump of almost 2 percentage points. Now, as far as the 7% is concerned, the IIP figures, which are obviously being calculated by the same Department of Statistics, in the IIP, the growth rate for that quarter, second quarter of the current fiscal, is only 2%. And according to this new formula value added, it goes up to 7%. So there is a lot of confusion in the manner in which data is being compiled and is being dished out to the people. When we shift to a new formula, then it is incumbent on the government to let the people know what would have been the situation according to the older formula. Yeah, I mean, so you say that if the formula for computation of the GDP had not undergone a change, what would be the growth rate according to the old formula for the last 3 years and also for the quarters. Now we are running on 2 tracks. IIP is being calculated on production figures, absolute numbers, and GDP is being calculated on value added. And as somebody explained, even if the total production has gone down, but the value added has increased, you will record this as growth. So, and clearly there is, in the given situation in which we are today, with very moderate petroleum prices, the value added in many sectors would be much more than is the case, what would have been the case otherwise. It may not work in your favor all the time, but in the particular situation in which we have found ourselves in the last 3 years, it has gone to the advantage of this current formula. 2 fundamental issues to which we used to refer prior to winning the election and coming into office in 2014. And people like me used to speak on behalf of the party on economic issues. The two fundamental problems that we pointed out was, one, policy paralysis, leading to the stalling of a very large number of projects, even amounting to 25 lakh crore, 30 lakh crore rupees. These were the figures. Nobody had actual figures, but these were the figures which appeared in the media, that 25 lakh crore worth of projects are stalled, etc., etc. This was point number one. Point number two was the stressed assets of the banks. The banks were getting into problems largely because of the slowdown in the economy and the stalled projects. And here I'd like to say that in our system, a person approaches a bank for or banks for a loan when he gets the first primary approval of the government. So, suppose a road contract has been awarded to somebody. He will go to the banks and say, I have this contract of worth whatever, and now you give me the money, and the bank or banks will get together and lend him money. But he would not have got environment clearance, he wouldn't have received forest clearance, and most importantly, even the land would not have been acquired. You see, so these were the three reasons where policy paralysis was responsible for stalling projects, and this applied to many other sectors also. And the third concomitant factor, related factor, is the issue of demand in the economy. I mean, today, if I were to tell you, and it's not a secret, that demand is depressed, and therefore the private sector is not fully utilizing even the existing capacity. Therefore, the question of fresh capacity creation does not arise, and therefore fresh private investment will not take place. This is a cycle. So, how would demand grow in the economy? This is a problem that we had faced in 1998 when I had taken over the finance ministry and we had come into government, that for quite some time demand in the economy was depressed, global demand was also depressed, and the economy was not picking up. And therefore, when we started all these projects like the national highway projects, or the reforms in the telecom sector, the rural roads projects, housing, for instance, where many concessions were made available, housing and real estate, many sectors of the economy with a multiplier effect were tackled so that demand was generated from these sectors. And once demand started picking up, then the other cycles automatically got activated. I understand that some figures were made available which would show that something like 15 lakh crore of projects are still stalled. So there has been some improvement, but not all the stalled projects have been cleared. Now we are 3.5 years down the line and more, and in government, and the bank NPAs are still there in front of us. Nothing much has happened. We have a new law, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, but the government what the government has done is, it has transferred the entire responsibility of tackling the NPAs to the RBI. We didn't do anything. I had faced a very much worse problem in '98 of NPAs, but I did not say that RBI should tackle it. It was government's responsibility, especially as far as public sector banks are concerned, And we took a series of measures to tackle the NPA problem, and I dare say that in 2-3 years' time we were able to get the better of the problem. Now here we have the new bankruptcy code. Now what is the bankruptcy code doing? Bankruptcy code is taking firms and companies to the court, tribunal, and they are being declared bankrupt. Now the company will close down. Today I saw an order of the Supreme Court that Unitech takeover, they have taken objection to. The tribunal cannot order when the matter is before the Supreme Court. So we have gone into a long litigation process because of this bankruptcy code. The second is that
demand.
no, the RBI is not fully equipped to deal with, the owner should deal with the problem. RBI is not the owner, the government is the owner of public sector banks. The point I am making is there are a whole lot of problems in tackling bank NPAs. And no one formula will work. It has to be a combination of steps. In 3.5 years, that does not seem to have happened. But the construction industry is in poor shape. It's a huge employer. Agriculture is in poor shape. It's a huge employer. Textile has now its own problems. Again, a very big employer of labor force. So, demand is not picking up. That multiplier effect which should have been there in the economy by now in full play, that has not happened. So, depressed demand, idle capacity, no fresh private sector investment, and finally, government is running out of steam. Within this year, for instance, the front loading has already led to near 100% of fiscal deficit in the first 7-8 months. So, as we have seen in the second quarter, government expenditure has been depressed. And third and fourth quarter, there is no way in which you can splurge. So, the expenditure incurred by the government is not going to add value to the growth rate. And therefore, everyone agrees that unless the private sector takes off, the economy will not really pick up speed.